Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys are doing well. In today's video, I will be sharing with you the step-by-step instructions on how to bring your Filipina fiance to the US. Someone actually requested this video. I apologize. It's taken me quite some time to make the video. All right, I would like to add a disclaimer before I start. I don't work for immigration and I am not affiliated with any immigration lawyer. All of the information I'm providing is based on our personal experience. My husband and I, we did our process about 2 decades ago. So it's been quite some time. So I had to go to the website. I'm going to put the website here, uscis.gov. That is the US Citizenship and Immigration Services. I just needed to double check, make sure that the information I'm providing you is accurate and up to date because, again, it's been quite some time. So, um, there's some slight changes, not much, mainly on the fee. It's definitely more expensive now. All right, let's get started, shall we? So for this process, you will need to obtain a K1 non-immigrant visa for your Filipina fiancé, also known as the fiancé visa. The first step on this process is to file Form I-129F. I'm going to put it right here. And I'm going to go through my notes so I don't get lost. All right. So before you file, you must check the eligibility requirements for both you, the U.S. citizen, you are the petitioner, and the Filipina. That's your, the foreign fiance. So go through the checklist. I'm going to call this a checklist. And while you're going through the checklist, you can start gathering your supporting documentation. Because when you file that Form I-129F, I'm going to put it here, you're going to have to submit that with supporting documents. Okay, let's start with the first requirements. So the first one, you are a U.S. citizen. So if you got that by birth, you are a U.S. citizen by birth, make sure to put aside a copy of your birth certificate. If you got that by naturalization, the same thing. Make sure to get a copy of your naturalization papers, put it aside. All right, the second requirement. You and your fiance intend to marry one another within the 90 days period. You have 90 days to get married. That's starting from the day that she's admitted into the U.S. On a K1 non-immigrant visa. So, for example, if she gets here on, let's say, January 1st, you have till the end of March to get married. So that's the time frame. Now, make sure you actually have a plan or intent to get married. You actually have wedding plans because when she goes through her visa interview, they're going to ask her questions about that. Okay? Most of the girls, including myself, when I went to my interview, I was asked that. So what is the wedding plan, Where is this going to be? Is it going to be a church wedding? Is this going to be a beach wedding? Who's going to be there? The details. So if you don't really have a plan, you're just making it up or you're lying about it, they're going to catch on and they're going to start to get suspicious. So if you actually have the intention or plans of getting married, I mean, it should be a breeze to answer those questions, right? All right, let's move on to the next requirement. You and your fiance are both legally free to marry. This means you both are legally able to marry in the US, and any previous marriages have been legally terminated by divorce, death, or annulment. So when you fill out that form, I'm going to put it here, the I-29F, there's going to be boxes there. Single, never been married, or if you've been married before. And if you're single, never been married, obviously you don't have to worry about that. You check that off. If you've been married before and you've been divorced, again, start gathering your documentation. Make sure you have a copy of that divorce papers. Now, if you have a spouse before and you lost her, then the same thing, you're going to have to make a copy of that death certificate. And if your Filipina has been granted an annulment, yeah, make sure you also have a copy of that annulment papers just to be safe. Okay, put those aside. All right, the last requirement, and this one is actually very important. You and your fiance met each other in person at least once within the 2-year period before you file your petition. So for most people, this is actually not that hard this requirements. Most people even met like maybe several times before they even start the process. But I did get a question from someone, I can't remember when exactly, about a month ago. The person was saying like, what if I can't really travel to the Philippines because I have a disability? There are two grounds on which you can actually request a waiver. This is, you may request a waiver of this in-person meeting requirement if you can show that meeting in person would, the first ground, violate strict and long established customs of your fiance's foreign culture or social practice. Or the second ground is that if meeting in person would result in extreme hardship to you, the U.S. citizen petitioner. Now, it may be a little hard to prove this, but those are the two grounds on which you can actually request a waiver to, a waiver of this in-person meeting. All right, so now let's start with step one. This is actually when you start filling out the form and, mailing that form to the accurate address, because there's a separate address for the U.S. Postal Service, USPS, and I think you can also use another carrier, FedEx, UPS, and I think DHL. I'm gonna put it on the screen. There's two separate addresses, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, both of them are going to Texas. So you mail that form. Now, if you want to receive electronic notification of your application, you can also file form, I'm going to put it on the screen, G1145 with this application. That is basically just a request, you requesting them to send you an electronic notification for the updates if you want that. Okay, so you file that form, and then the USCIS will review your application. Of course, they will review the application, the documents you submitted, and the first thing they're gonna do is they're gonna send you a thing called NOAA 1, your first notification, notice of action, and they will mail you that notice of action. It will just basically say, we've received your application and it's under review. We're reviewing it, and it's gonna take quite some time for them to review that, because a lot of agencies are involved in this process. You've got USCIS, the immigration. And then you've got the Department of State, the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. And each stage of this process, they're going to do a lot of checks, mainly for national security. They're going to do criminal history or background checks, basically. They're going to double check that all your information that you provided, not just you, but also the Filipina, all of those are accurate. And for those who have criminal history, they're probably going to end up asking for more evidence, more documentation from you, and they're going to determine whether you're actually whether they're going to approve you or deny you. Now, about if everything goes through, let's just assume that it goes smoothly. They don't need additional documentation or supporting evidence from you, then it will take at least 5 to 6 months for them to review and process that application. And then you will receive your second notification. So the second notice of action. For this one, it's either an approval or denial. So if they approve you, then we're good to go. If it's a denial, they will also give you a reason of why they're denying your application. All right, so what's happened next? This application, or the approved petition, at this point it's already an approved petition. Let's assume it goes through, everything goes smoothly, hopefully. Then they will forward this approved petition to the DOS, or Department of State National Visa Center. And the National Visa Center will now forward that approved petition to the U.S. Embassy in Manila. So now we move on to the step 2 of the process. So again, the Visa Center will, forward that approved petition or application to the U.S. Embassy in Manila, and then your Filipina fiancé will receive a notification via the mail, letting her know, I can't talk today, letting her know that the petition has been approved and this is how you proceed with the application. She will also receive an eligibility letter via email to schedule her visa interview. So now her end of the process starts. All right, so your fiance will need to complete and submit DS-160. I'm going to put it here. That is the form. She's going to fill that out and submit that. It is an online application, all right? This is her K1 fiance visa application. She has to do that online. Next, your fiance will need to sign up for online pre-registration for medical exam conducted by the U.S. Embassy approved facility or medical facility. So in the Philippines, that facility is St. Luke's Extension Clinic. I'm going to put it here, SLEC. This is the St. Luke's Medical Hospital, but it's not in the actual St. Luke's Hospital. It's gonna be like a separate facility where she's gonna get that. That's where they process all of their visa processing, like medical, what do you call it, exam for everybody who's, again, applying for a U.S. visa. So she's gonna have to sign up online. Again, she will be given instructions on how to do that with that packet that she receives. So that is the pre-registration for her medical exam. Next, your fiance will need to pay the MRV. This is the machine readable visa fee. She's going to have to go to a bank. Again, there's going to be an instructions on which bank she should go to and pay this visa fee. I remember I went to the Bank of the Philippine Islands to pay my visa fee. Make sure that she keeps that slip, that receipt, the bank slip. After she pays, they're going to give her like a receipt because she's going to need that. That's very important. That same day, she can actually go online and make her online appointment, not online, make that appointment online for her visa interview. But make sure she wait at least 4 hours before scheduling an appointment. So to schedule her visa interview appointment, she needs to visit the online appointment system for the U.S. Embassy in the Philippines. So she goes online. Again, instructions will be given to her. And then she can make that appointment 4 hours after she paid that visa fee in that specific bank. All right, there is no fee to schedule an appointment up to 4 times. Just in the case she has some sort of emergency and she has to reschedule, she can actually do that up to 4 times. There's no fee. But after the 4th attempt, you'll need to wait, or she'll need to wait. She will have to wait for 90 days before scheduling a new appointment. So that's something to consider, right? Make sure I've never heard of someone having this issue, but if she ever encounter some sort of difficulty, she can reschedule up to 4 times, and she will not be charged of any fee for that. All right, let's move on to the next step. Now she will have to do her medical examination with St. Luke's Extension Clinic. Again, she will be given an instructions on the address and what time her appointment is. She will get those information when she makes that appointment or pre-registration online. So in this medical examination, I'm reading some information here. It says here she's going to undergo a thorough physical examination performed by an authorized physician. So this is a full body exam. The examination may include blood test, chest x-ray, and communicable diseases screening. So I remember we did urine analysis. That's very important. They're going to do urine analysis to make sure she is not... They're going to do a pregnancy test as well. And that is very important. I have some horror stories on that. But anyways, they're going to do pregnancy test. And of course, she has to make sure that she also have with her her vaccination record. So if she's missing any required vaccination that's recommended by CDC, then they're going to give her those vaccinations. Now, I have a little bit of story on this. I was reading through this back in the day, and I was like, oh, I have to get my vaccination card. And I realized I didn't have that much vaccinations as a child. I had like, this was back in the day, so I had maybe like 4. So I was telling my mom, oh no, I'm missing so many. So I ended up actually going to a pediatrician, and I started getting my vaccinations because I wanted to be prepared, right? And then I show up on the medical exam, and then some girls, it's the same story, didn't have that much vaccinations. They actually provide those vaccinations there for free. And I was like, well, I spent all this money because I wanted to be prepared. But you can actually get there. They will give that to you. Whatever vaccines she is missing, they're going to give that to her on that extension clinic for free. The only thing is they do that the same day, like all of it. So if you need, let's say, like 4 vaccines, they'll give you all those shots the same day. So some of the girls got sick. So I actually did mine months ahead, and I just had to make sure that, of course, it has to be a licensed pediatrician because you have to provide. They give you this card, and then she has to provide her license number in there. So just a little bit of a heads up. So let's talk about the medical exam because that's very important. So she shows up there. She's gonna have to bring some documentations with her. So another thing that's very important, and with this one, I actually ended up having to get a medical x-ray. I ended up getting that at a different facility, but it has to be an approved facility. And I traveled with this big envelope with me of my, that chest X-ray, because I guess I was told I had to bring that with me, because in the Philippines back in the day, at least in our time, TB was prevalent in certain areas, and I actually had TB exposure. Now I don't have tuberculosis, but I was exposed to someone who had TB. So um, they're gonna do a TB screening. I can't say that, tuberculosis screening, and yes, they're gonna do a TB test, and then that will include a chest X-ray. I did that, and or a tuberculin skin test. I mean, I've done that too when I came here, and I was tested positive because I was exposed to it, but I don't have TB. Okay, I just want to put that out. So if she tests positive, that doesn't mean she's sick. It just means that she's been exposed to someone with that had tuberculosis. So let's talk about the medical examination. So when she shows up, of course, she's gonna have to pay the fee, the medical examination fee. Make sure she brings with her her confirmation email. When she makes that pre-registration online, she has to bring that. Next, her vaccination records, so from her childhood, or if she, like me, she shows up there with a vaccination records. Make sure that it's signed by her physician, and they also add the physician license number. That's very important. Of course, her passport, and they will also ask for two identical passport size photos. Now, again, I in my case, I was like, it's better to be prepared than, like, overly prepared than, not ready when you show up. So I already had this with me. Now there are some girls who showed up without those passports. Now outside this extension clinic, they have a setup there where you can actually get photos. Now it's very expensive. They definitely hike the price up because they know you need it, right? Um, However, some girls were also prepared. They got their photos from somewhere, and apparently they did not accept those photos. Now, I went to the mall in a specific studio where they said they were. Well, that's what they said. Actually, I'm gonna put the studio here. I'm not sure if they're still open. It's called the Image Studio. It's inside the SM malls, and they're apparently like approved for passports and all this visa processing. Like they can actually they do that, and they're apparently approved by the US embassy. I'm not sure if that's true, but they accepted the photos that I took with me. But some girls, they took some photos in their local area and they did not accept that, so they had to go outside and pay quite a bit of money to get those two passport size photos. All right, next on that exam, um, if she has some type of chronic illnesses or medical or infectious diseases, she's gonna have to be ready to disclose that. It is a very thorough exam. Again, they check everything. Um, but as far as my experience, it's a female doctor, so I mean, yeah, they will check everything. They'll strip you down and check you. It is very, very strict, to be very honest with you. All right, after completing the medical examination, the authorized medical facility will provide you with the necessary documentation to be submitted with your K1 visa application. All right, this is one of the most important part of the process, the visa interview. All right, so she made that appointment online, right? The appointment, of course, will tell her where to go. She's going to be given the address, but it is the U.S. Embassy in Manila. You can see it in Rojas Boulevard. If you're familiar with the area, if you're from Manila, you know where it is. Um, but if she's coming from the province, then obviously she will get that address, the instructions on that appointment confirmation. So the visa interview. Now, my visa interview was actually at 10 in the morning, I remember, if I remember correctly, but it was around 10 or 11. But most of the advice I've gotten from everybody is that you have to show up early because the line is really long early in the morning. So I was like, you know what? No problem. I'll show up there early. I woke up at 4 in the morning. I was there at 5 or 5:30. Like I was really early, and I thought, I'm gonna be the first one here. No, I was wrong. There was a line already when I got there. I mean, if you show up like 30 minutes before your appointment, you're gonna be late because this line is long. So you got make sure she shows up early, okay? Show up early on that visa appointment interview appointment. I'm sorry. So, On this appointment, she will have to bring a lot of documentation with her. And my motto in this is like it's better to be overly prepared than than to not have the paperwork or that kind of documentation when they ask you during your interview. I gotta need some water. All right, so on this interview, let me share with you all of the documentation that she will have to bring. I have some notes here. So on her visa interview, she will need to bring the following documentations. The first one, the DS-160 confirmation page. Remember, she has to fill out that online application. She has to print a copy of that, the printed page of the DS-160 online non-immigrant visa application. Oh, that is so long. Next, proof of payment for the visa application fee. Again, when she went to the bank and paid, make sure she keeps that, bank slip or that receipt. Next, passport with validity of at least 6 months. It's probably better if it's more because, you want to it's better to be it's better to be, safe, you know what I mean? All right. Passport again, I already said that. Appointment confirmation. Again, she's going to receive that via email. She must, the applicant must have a printed confirmation of the visa interview appointment. This document will indicate the scheduled date and time of the interview. She will also need her birth certificate. Now, the birth certificate, they're very, very particular with this. The birth certificate, I can't talk anymore, has to be an original or certified copy of the applicant's birth certificate from the PSA. This is the Philippines Statistics Authority or the National Statistics Office, NSO. So most people that probably don't know, at least back in my day, went to the national, statistics office and waited there for like it is very hard to like to get a birth certificate there. You have to be there all day long, and it's like it is such a long wait. So I found out by researching that you can actually order this online and then they mail it to you via FedEx. How convenient. But of course you'll have to pay, I remember I paid, if I recall correctly, at least 1,500 pesos. But I didn't have to go anywhere. It was so convenient. I ordered it online. It was delivered to me via FedEx. And that came directly from Manila. And I was in Bicol region during that time. So if she doesn't want to go through the hassle of lining up all day in NSO, she can just order it online. All right. Next, police clearance and NBI clearance. Now, this is very important. Now, this is where it's a little bit different. Here in the US, they do all of the background checks for you. Over there, it's almost like we did our own. We do, or we initiate our own background checks. You actually have to show up in the police station and ask for a police clearance. And then you have to go to NBI. That's it. That is the National Bureau of Investigation. And then ask them to do, they're going to do a background check on your behalf, and then they're going to give you a certificate saying, she's all good, she's clear. You're going to need the police clearance to get the NBI clearance, and you're going to need both to get your passport anyway. So this shouldn't be that hard to get. Make sure she brings copies, and if she has the original, it's even better. All right. So the medical examination results, that usually happens before the interview. She's going to be given some type of paperwork on that, so she will have to bring that with her. Next is a proof of financial support. The petitioner must meet certain income requirements. So this is the U.S. citizen to demonstrate their ability to financially support the beneficiary, that's the Filipina, and prevent them from being a public charge in the United States. So they want to make sure that you're not going to be a burden to the U.S. Okay, when you come here. So they want to make sure that the U.S. citizen is going to be able to support you financially, because obviously when you come here, you're not going to be able to work right away, or you may not. Your plan may be to start a family right away. So they just want to make sure that you're going to be taken care of, that you're not going to end up asking the government to, support you when you come here. All right. So there are some documentations that you can, use to, use as a proof of financial support. The first one, the applicant may be required to show evidence of financial support, such as a letter of intent to marry. My husband and I did this. Form 134. I-134, I'm going to put it here. Form I-134, affidavit of support. Oh my goodness, I can't talk anymore. From the U.S. citizen sponsor. So we did that too. So we did the letter of intent to marry. Form I-134, that is the affidavit of support. And then we also did employment verification. And some are also required to submit bank statements. Now, we didn't have to do that. We used three, the intent to marry, the letter of intent to marry, the affidavit of support, and then the employment verification. So we submitted those and then we're good to go. All right, the next documentation she will have to bring is very important. Proof of a bona fide relationship. This is evidence that she has to bring with her, submit, that that will demonstrate that the relationship between you and her is genuine and you're not just faking it. And this is, they will ask for this, okay? They want to make sure that your relationship is genuine, because of course there are some frauds out there, so they just want to make sure, a double check that this is a genuine bona fide relationship. So what can you use for this? For us, I mean, back in the day, my husband and I, we really liked writing each other letters. I'm talking about written hand letters. We sent that via the snail mail. Back in the day, there was really no internet. Like, it take, like, I remember this. It took me like an hour just to send an email because the the internet was so bad. So we started writing each other letters. So we use that as a evidence of our relationship. Of course, very important, and actually they would ask for this, is that your photographs together, not just individual, together, pictures together. Emails nowadays, of course, emails, if you still do. But actually, it's good to have those because, again, you're going to need those as evidence of support. Now, let's say you're very high tech. You don't email, you don't write letters. You can use chat messages. Just going to have to make maybe screenshot that and then print it out. Phone records. I mean, nobody really, back in the day, my husband used to call me using calling cards. So I brought those with me. Nowadays, everybody calls with what? Facebook Messenger. I guess you can actually, screenshot, your, not really record your conversations, but just screenshot that, oh, we had, we talked this X amount of time, whatever. And other documentation. There are so many other, ways to prove that your relationship is bona fide. I think the picture itself will say a lot, would say a lot. So pictures together, letters, emails, chat messages, screenshots of your phone records, or if you don't use calling cards, obviously nobody uses calling cards anymore. That conversation you had on Messenger, just screenshot that, print it out, and show it to them. All right. So this requirements or the paperwork may vary slightly depending on your situation. Okay, so if you've been divorced before, of course she has to have a copy of your divorce papers. If she's granted an annulment, she has to bring a copy of that. It will all depend on your situation. And another thing that I would like to ask, because someone actually asked me this question: what if my Filipina is bringing her child with her? You can actually include the child on that I-129F. You can include the name of the child. So, okay, let's go to that. Children of fiancé. So let's say she is traveling with her child or children. I'm just going to go ahead and read this. So if your fiancé has a child or children who is under 21 and unmarried, the child may be eligible to come to the U.S. on a K2 non-immigrant visa. So again, your fiance will be using K1 fiance visa. Her child or children will be using K2 non-immigrant visa. You must include the names of your fiance's children on the Form I-29F if you wish to bring them to the U.S. The children must continue to be unmarried and under 21 in order to be admitted to the U.S. as a K2 non-immigrants. They may travel with your fiance or later. Well, I didn't read that properly. So they may travel with her or later, but they cannot travel to the US before her, okay? So either they go with her or later, but they cannot come first. All right. If you and your fiance married within the 90 days, that time frame, your fiance's children who were admitted as K2 non-immigrants may also apply for a green card by filing Form I-4 or 85. We're going to talk about that later. So this visas, the K1 and K2, these are non-immigrant visa, meaning there is like a limit to this, like again, that 90 days. Now if you don't meet the requirements on those in this visa, she's gonna have to go back to the Philippines. All right, let's move on to the next step of the process. So we finished the visa interview. Now we're gonna go to the last step. Now this one is interesting because this one is actually not required by the US, but this is more of a requirement by the Philippines, the Department of Foreign Affairs. All right, so after her interview, let's say on that same day that she gets her interview, she will find out if she's either approved or denied. Okay, she will find it out right there on her interview. So let's say she passes, everything goes through, everything is, she's ready to go. So before she can actually, you know leave the country, she's gonna have to take a pre-departure orientation seminar, PDOS, I'm gonna put it here, for Filipino immigrants to the USA. I'm gonna put the website here. This is actually conducted by the Commission on Filipino Overseas. Now, back in the day, we had to do that in person, and it was an all-day event. At the end of the day, we were given a certification that we completed the seminar, and that's required. Now, there were some horror stories of some girls, and I know one of them personally. She showed up at the airport. She didn't know anything about this because, again, this is not required by the US Embassy. This is the Philippines government. She showed up at the airport, and when she was about to leave, they asked for that certificate. She did not have it. They held her. She was not allowed to leave. So this is very important. Now, nowadays, apparently, you can actually do this online and it's free of charge. Back then, we had to pay for it. It wasn't that much. It was like 200 pesos, I believe. And it was an all-day event, but now you can actually do that online. But I've heard you have to like do this ahead of time because they don't have a lot of available slots online when you make the appointment. So make sure she do that at least a month ahead, because when she makes that appointment, there may not be anything available a month later, you know what I mean? So make sure she does that. And again, this is the free departure orientation by the Commission Filipinos Overseas, and this is free of charge. She's going to do that online. Now on that seminar, she's going to get instructions on how to get settled in the USA. It's like a handbook really for Filipinos migrating to the USA. Now, this is, I think, when I went to the seminar, I was kind of, to be honest, annoyed because I found out about this the day before my flight. So I was like scared, but I was happy that they actually have this. It is a good seminar to attend to because you will learn a lot of things, basically getting you ready on your new life in America. They will give you like a handbook, advice on how to get settled in America, learning the language. They advise you really should learn how to speak English, learn how to drive, give you a little bit of an idea about the American culture. And of course, they give a lot of resources for those who, if you happen to get in that situation where, you get abused or whatever, things like that happen. So they give you resources on what numbers to call, on how to call the Philippines Commission on Filipinos Overseas to ask for help. So I think it's very good seminar to attend to. All right, so on her departure day, they will ask for that certification. So if she doesn't have that, they could stop her or hold her, because some girls actually went through that, and yeah, that's not a good situation, canceling your flight. Okay, on that day, I have this one short story. I'm gonna try to make it short. On my departure day, I was in line checking out, right, or checking in. I don't know which one is the right term. For my flight, I was asked to pay 1,500 pesos on the in that counter, and I was asking, what is this, charge, or what is this fee for? The lady behind the counter told me it was a tourist tax. And I thought, tourist tax? Like, I'm not a tourist. I've never left the country. I'm a Filipino citizen. I'm leaving the country. I wasn't here as a tourist. Why are you charging me tourist tax? Now, this lady did not really want to explain anything to me. So let me know if you're Filipino experienced this. I'm not sure if this is a thing. Like, that kind of was weird. And when I asked, what do you mean tourist tax? I've never been anywhere. I'm a Filipino citizen. Why am I charged? Why are you asking me to pay a tourist tax? And she was like, so are you gonna hold up everybody? So, she was kind of aggravated. So when I saw her face, I was like, you know what? It may not be a good idea to be to be arguing with her, because at this point I just want to, be able to leave smoothly. So I ended up paying that. So yes, she may want to bring some Filipino money with her, like pesos, just in case. But yeah, that was kind of weird. Let me know if your Filipina had to pay anything called tourist tax before she left the Philippines. Okay, so the next step, this is the inspection at a port of entry. So your Filipina travels to the US, and when she lands on her port of entry, she will have this casual interview with a CBP officer. This is the immigration officer. It is a very casual interview. She doesn't have to go to any specific room. It's just right there in the line. There's kind of a booth, and then she will be asked questions. Things like, oh, so what are you here for? What are you traveling for? Very casual. Actually, the person that did my casual interview was very nice. And I was just asked questions like, when is the wedding gonna be? So who is this lucky guy? Stuff like that. It's very casual. It's nothing to be scared of. Just, she can just relax and, answer the questions. All right. So after that, then she's here in the United States. You have 90 days to marry each other. Okay, let's say you decided you did not want to get married because, things doesn't always go as planned, right? Some people decide we're not for each other, this is not going to work, we're not going to get married. Now she's going to have to go back to the Philippines. If she doesn't, she's going to be deported. So that's really what's going to happen. All right, let's say you marry within that 90 days. So what happens next? This is the last step on this process. You're gonna have to adjust her status, because again, that status, that K1 fiance visa, that's a non-immigrant visa. That doesn't give her the right to really stay in the US. That's just like a conditional visa, and it has a time frame. Okay, so after you marry within that 90-day period, you're gonna have to adjust her status. If you marry within 90 days, your fiance, now your spouse, may apply for a green card by filing form I-485. I'm going to put it right here. This is the application to register permanent residence or to adjust her status. At the same time, she can also request to obtain that working permit if she wishes to work. All right. As I mentioned, if she's coming to the US with her child or children, she can also adjust her status. If you and her get married within 90 days, her children can also adjust their status from K2 non-immigrant visa to they can get the green card, to register permanent residence. Again, this is also actually conditional. If you marry within that 90 days, it is also a conditional permanent residence card. It is not like it's almost like temporary. I'm having a hard time explaining this. It's a temporary card. It's a temporary green card, and then you're gonna have to. It's another process, to be very honest with you. So immigration is actually very, very strict if you're doing it legally. It is very strict. You're gonna have to go through hoops and loops, and it can cost a lot of money. So let me read something for the children if she's coming with her child or children. If you and your fiance married within 90 days of your fiance's admission to the U.S., your fiance's children who were admitted as K2 non-immigrants may also apply for green card by filing it's the same form I-485 with USCIS, that's the immigration. However, the K2 non-immigrant children must remain unmarried in order to be eligible for a green card. K2 non-immigrant children should apply for a green card at the same time or after your fiancé. So those are the things that you have to consider. They have to remain unmarried to get that permanent residency. So someone asked a question. This is going to be the end of the video almost. So how much is all of this going to cost? Well, it will depend. Let's say your situation is like ours, very straightforward. Both of you have never been married before. You've got all of the documentation that's needed to file this. The form itself, the form I-129F, right now, where's the thing? It costs as of February 2024, Um, it's February 1st today. I'm filming this. All right. As of February 2024, it cost 535 US dollars to file this petition. 535 US dollars. Of course, you always want to make sure that you're checking the website because that could change anytime. And of course, there's going to be miscellaneous expenses because to mail that, of course, you're going to have to pay for that stamp, the cost of mailing it. And that's your end. And that is if you if you do everything yourself. Now, if you hire someone to help you prepare the documentation, then obviously you're going to have to pay that person. I remember someone from my church, our church actually, he was very busy, so he hired someone, not really like an immigration expert, but just someone to help him like gather all the documentation, and he paid that person an extra like $150. So I mean, let's say just to round it up, it might cost you at least $1,000 just to file the petition. And then on your Filipinas end, if she decides to do that herself, meaning she's not hiring anybody, any lawyer, she can just do everything herself. If the process is very straightforward, then all right, she's gonna pay for the visa application. If I recall, that's not more than $200. And then her medical examination, I don't think that's gonna be, for those who are going through this process, let me know the updated fees because mine was 2 decades ago. So let's say just to round it up, it might cost at least $1,000 to $2,000, and this is very generous actually. Um, so overall, it might cost you 2,000 to 3,000 US dollars for everything. If your situation is like ours, never been married before, you don't need a lot of, documentation, and you did everything yourselves. Now, if she's coming with her child or children, then obviously it's gonna your fees are gonna increase because even though your petition is that you're filing one I-29F, she's gonna have to process on her end. Each of those visas will be processed separately. So her visa K1, her children K2. So she's gonna have to pay for those separately. And then of course the medical examinations. Now, if your Filipina is residing in Manila, then obviously that's good. She doesn't have to, she doesn't need to travel because that will cost some money. If she's coming from the province, she has to travel to Manila to do that interview and the medical exam. That's travel expenses and living expenses because, while she's doing all that, she's going to be there for at least a week. Actually, when I did this, I came from the Bicol region. I was in Manila for 2 weeks, but I only really needed to be there for a week. But it started flooding, so I got stuck. So yes, so those are the things to consider. Now, do you need to hire a lawyer? I mean, again, if your situation is like ours, very straightforward, not really a lot of complication. There's no complication with ours. It's very straightforward process. Then we didn't have to hire a lawyer. I did everything myself. I did a lot of research. Nowadays, there's so many resources available online. I'm not sure if this is still available, but back in my day, there was one website where I actually got a lot of help that was called visajourney.com. Let me know if that's still available. I actually found out from that website that I was supposed to go to this, the CFO pre-departure seminar because that wasn't available anywhere. I found that there. So, find websites like that where you can get people's almost like a timeline of how they process their paperwork or their visa journey, they call it, and you will get a lot of advice from those people. All right, so hiring an immigration lawyer. Yes, there were some girls who are in the same situation as I was, really straightforward, but they decided to hire an immigration lawyer. Of course you can. If you don't feel comfortable doing everything you're on your own, of course you can hire a lawyer, but of course you're gonna have to pay that lawyer. So I mean, for us it was very important to save money and to make sure the cost is not that high. So I did everything myself, and my husband also did on his end. So that's the step-by-step process on how to bring your Filipina to the US. It is kind of, it's very strict. So so if you have any question, let me know. You can put it in the comment section below. I hope I didn't ramble too much. All right, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.